What's up, everyone? Today is March 24th of 2022. In this video, we're going to be talking about the passing yesterday of Madeleine Albright, who was the first female Secretary of State in the history of the United States. When assuming the role back in the year 1997, Albright became the highest-ranking female in the history of the United States government, a title which has since been surpassed by two women, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, and Kamala Harris, the current vice president. Now, to start this video off, I want to give a shout out to Bobby Simpson, whose blog is linked down below in the description of this video. And what Bobby pointed out last week, posting this on March 15th, was that this coming week was a very significant astrological alignment for the Queen, that being Queen Elizabeth of England. And everything is laid out here, and a lot of this has to do with the planet Pluto. Now, last month, on February 22nd, the media went wild, telling us that February 22nd, 2022, was the date of the Pluto return, which means that from the date that the Declaration of Independence was signed, Pluto completed one full orbit, which takes nearly 250 years to complete. However, anybody who actually looks closely at the numbers realizes that this was not the case. The actual Pluto return in sidereal astrology occurs on March 25th. So Bobby does a great job of pointing out why this is significant, as Pluto is connected to our current president, Joe Biden. As you see here, Pluto wields a weapon called the bident. So kind of like how Neptune has the trident, Pluto has the bident, which sounds very similar to Biden. Now, with all the turmoil that's going on in the world, Joe Biden has been in the news lately, and he's really stirred a controversy yesterday, March 23rd, the day that Madeleine Albright died, as he said he wants to help establish a new world order. And these comments shook a lot of people, particularly in the conspiracy circle, who have been talking about the New World Order for many, many years. And this whole story of a president talking about the New World Order reminds us of a special date in history, September 11th, 1990, exactly 11 years to the day before the attacks of 9/11 in 2001. During this speech, George Bush promised that there would be a new world order emerging, and this was kind of the birth of the phrase, so to speak. On March 11th, WWE released a new video game, WWE 2K22, and one of the two special edition covers for this game features the New World Order, who was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame last year. Now, of the four men on the cover, one of them is Scott Hall, also known as Razor Ramon for his time in WWF. And Scott Hall just recently passed away on March 14th, a little over a week ago. Feel free to check my channel out for a video on his passing. So there's been a lot of talk about the New World Order, and we'll talk about how the death of Madeleine Albright is connected to the death of George Bush back in 2018, the man who preceded Bill Clinton, who Albright worked for. And then we're also going to explain how this is connected to the Queen. Now, obviously, it wasn't the Queen who passed away, but we did get a figure in America very similar to the Queen, right? The most powerful woman in the government at the time that she was sworn in. We're going to talk about how this connection exists through a TV show called Madam's Secretary, and consider how Madeleine Albright was the first Secretary of State. This series was about a female Secretary of State played by Téa Leoni, whose real name is Elizabeth. Now again, this is all astrological as we started talking about the Pluto return, but as usual, we're going to talk about total solar eclipses and the two great American eclipses, which this is no doubt an extreme riddle for. And of course, we use the simple language of Gematria or Gematria, the numeric language that underlies our alphabet. We'll also take a glance at the reverse ciphers as we go, And don't forget the Latin or Jewish method, which I call the most significant cipher in this study. We'll look at this one in length as we go, and simply compare it to the calendar. And we'll see how something very, very, very strange is going on in our media. To start, let's talk about these two great American total solar eclipses, as we'll discover that the death of Madeleine Albright is a riddle connected to these two events. These eclipses are separated by 2,422 days, or exactly 82 lunar phases. So it'll be 82 synodic months from the first eclipse to the second. The name Madeleine Albright sums to 82 in reduction, and her death yesterday fell on the 82nd day of the year. The amount of time between these two eclipses is also 346 weeks, and in Latin Gematria, the name Madeleine Albright equals 346. Now, if you measure from the date August 21st to the date April 8th in 2024, you get 231 days with that leap day in 2024 included. Madeleine Albright, she was born as Marie Korbalova, as we can see here on her Wikipedia page. And she took office on the 23rd of January, the date written 23/1. Marie Korbalova equals 231 in Gematria. Marie Albright, the name that she changed her name to, sums to 123. Now, there's also 33 weeks between these two dates exactly, and this is a number that shows up in the Gematria of Sun and Eclipse. Using the reverse alphabetic order, Madeleine K. Albright sums to 330. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, now he's writing in this name out in a different way, so of course he's going to get different numbers, but I'm going to show you how this is very significant as well. With her middle initial, Madeleine K. Albright, it sums to 84, which is the age she was when she passed away. In the standard 26-letter alphabetic order, Madeleine K. Albright equals 156. And this is an incredibly significant number. We just talked about the number 33. Well, that has Gematria of 156. And in the ancient Hebrew language, the word for eclipse sums to 156. And this is because eclipses always occur 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the last one. In the alphabetic order, eclipse the sun even equals 156. The current U.S. Secretary of State, one of Albright's successors, is named Antony Blinken. In the alphabetic order, his name sums to 156. And if you measure from the date that he was sworn into his role to the death of Madeleine Albright, you get 1 year and 56 days. However, the man who succeeded Madeleine Albright in her role directly was named Colin Luther Powell, and he died 156 days before Madeleine Albright. It's worth mentioning that Colin Powell died on the date 10/18, and Madeleine Albright was 118 months old when she died. So let's take a quick look at this. 1,018 months old, just like how Colin Powell died on the date 10/18. The number 156 is a very significant number for another reason, because the 156th prime is 9/11, like the Greek value for total eclipse. And here we see Colin Powell, who was in office during the 9/11 attacks. In those attacks, a total of 2,996 people died. Earlier, we mentioned how the new highest-ranking female in the history of the United States government is Kamala Harris, who is currently 2,996 weeks old. Furthermore, Albright died 29 days before the Queen's 96th birthday. The number 2996 is an extension of 28, as it's 28 times the 28th prime number. And 28 is the only other number that has gematria of 156, like 33. In relation to the Queen, think about how one of the most popular beverages in England is tea. Tea equals 156, but this is also the name of the actress who played Madam Secretary, Téa Leoni. Before we get there, I just want to point out how we are currently 254 lunar phases after 9/11. And this is a big reason why Bobby made his post. September 11th is the 254th day of the year, and the Queen, her birthday, falls on the date that leaves 254 days in the year. So they're on opposite ends of the calendar from one another. And again, this all going down 254 moons later. There's also 254 lunar phases in the Metonic cycle. And it's actually sidereal months, not lunar phases, but that's an important number anyway. So moving on, let's look back at this photo of Madeleine Albright together with Colin Powell, the two secretaries of state who recently passed away. Now, if we extend this image out a little further, we find this woman, and this is Téa Leoni, who played the main character in the series Madam Secretary, essentially playing, a version of Madeleine Albright. Now let's extend this image even further. Never mind. Let's not do that. So the name Téa equals 156. And again, she played the role of Madam Secretary, and her real birth name is Elizabeth Téa Pantaleone. On top of that, in the show, she also plays a character named Elizabeth. This, of course, brings us back to the Queen, whose name is Elizabeth II. The Queen's name at birth was Elizabeth Alexandra Mary. This has an ordinal value of 225. Téa Pantaleone was born on the date 225, or February 25th, in the year 66, and in reverse, Queen Elizabeth equals 66. In the standard reduction or Pythagorean method, the word queen equals 26. The Queen was born in the year 26. She became the Queen on February 6th, or 2/6, the same year that she would later turn 26. And then her coronation was held on the 6th of, June 2nd, not June 6th. This is written wrong, but it was the date written 2/6. Notice how the names Téa and Leoni both equal 26. Madeleine Albright died 26 days after her birthday. The names Téa and Leoni also both sum to 55. And when Albright died, the Queen was exactly 5,005 weeks old. Madam Secretary premiered on the date September 21st, which was the 64th day of the year. A date with 64 numerology, which was the 264th day of the year. The Queen's name, Elizabeth Mary, equals 64. Royal equals 64. They live in Buckingham Palace, which also equals 64. On the date that this show premiered, Madeleine Albright, the secretary, was 77 years and 129 days old. Albright equals 77, and secretary equals 129. Meanwhile, the Queen was 88 years old, and the name Elizabeth equals 88. So does Madam Secretary. The Queen was 153 days after her birthday when this show debuted. Now, this was a very significant date for the Queen for another reason. Consider how in the alphabetic order, the golden ratio equals 153. And the golden ratio is about 1.61. Those are the first three digits. And on the date of this show's debut, the Queen was exactly 1,061 months old, which looks a lot like the golden ratio, 1.61. In standard gematria, her Queen name, Elizabeth II, equals 106 and 61. The actress Téa also sums to 106 in Latin gematria. This show debuted in the year 2014. These are the same digits found in the Queen's birthday, written 21/4 or 421 in the United States. The lead character in the series was named Elizabeth Bess Adams McCord, which has reverse gematria of 421, just like the Queen's birthday. If you measure from the date that the current Secretary of State took office to the date that former Secretary of State Albright died, you even get 421 days. This number is significant for another reason, because it's the 82nd prime number. Remember, this was a number we started the video off with. 82 lunar phases between eclipses like Madeleine Albright, 82 dying on the 82nd day of the year. In the show Madam Secretary, the main character, her name is Elizabeth McCord, as we mentioned. And notice how Elizabeth McCord also has the 82 in Latin. We also pointed out this 346 connection, right? 346 weeks between eclipses like Madeleine Albright. This is also the reverse value of 1331 eclipse. And the 1331 eclipse is really what brings this all together. Those of you who are familiar with my work will know what this is all about. I did leave a link down in the description below to my post explaining everything you need to know about why this number is so significant and how it relates to eclipses. In Gematria, the phrase 1331 eclipse equals 131 and 1331. Now, the number 1331 is 11 to the third power. And consider how the date written 11/30, November 30th, is the only date that sums to 1331 in this cipher. The only total eclipse in 1331 fell on the date November 30th. And this was an extremely significant eclipse because in recorded history, no eclipse has had a longer duration of totality and also had the entire eclipse over land. And notice how land and fall both equal 13 and 31. This eclipse was even in autumn or fall. These digits are found in the gematria of Elizabeth Bess Adams McCord, 1133, Madam Secretary. 1331 represents a solar eclipse. Now, if you merge the numbers 133 and 331 at the 33, remember we talked about how this number was connected to eclipses, they merge into the number 1331. And in Gematria, 133 and 331 both sum to 1331. And this goes further. If you flip the word eclipse upside down, you get 4 different digits, 3173, which sums to 1331. These digits do not appear in pi until the 16,019th digit, and the number 16,019 equals 1331. Think about how pi begins with 3.14. Madeleine Albright equals 314, so does the word eclipse. In the King James Bible, the book of Revelation has a verse where it mentions both a solar and lunar eclipse. And in the alphabetic order, this verse sums to, you guessed it, 1331. This verse is 612, and think about this and how it connects to the calendar. The date 612 is June 12th. June 12th was the birthday of H.W. Bush, the man who first declared that there would be a new world order. So looking back at this 1331 code, which is so significant, in 2018, George Bush Sr. died on November 30th, the anniversary of this eclipse, the only 1331 date. His death was 3 years and 113 days before Madeleine Albright. So the same digits here, and remember, 11 to the third. Albright also died exactly 1,313 weeks after she was sworn in as Secretary of State back in the year 1997. But this is strong for another reason, because when you write out 1331, It has an ordinal value that connects to the 13th Fibonacci number. This number is 233. The name Albright equals 233, and she died on the 23rd of March, written 23/3. The first Great American Total Solar Eclipse even fell on the 233rd day of the calendar. And again, 1331, as we see, is 233. Notice how in reduction it sums to 98. The second eclipse occurs on the date April 8th, which is typically the 98th day of the year. So how wild is that, right? Day 233, day 98, 233 and 98. Now, followers of my work know that in 1331, something very significant started. The Black Death Plague, right? And now, during these two eclipses, here in the United States, we had the coronavirus. And corona, I mean, if you look up the definition of corona, it's the atmosphere of the sun which is only visible during a total eclipse. So everything I was teaching about in 2018 has slowly come true as we race towards this second Great American Eclipse in the year 2024. The 13th prime number is 41. Both Madeleine and Albright equal 41. She's got more connections to the number 13 there. So as we saw earlier, the numbers 133 and 331 both equal 1331. Well, are there any other numbers that have this value? And yes, there's one other, without the "and" in between. The number 393 equals 1331. And this is pretty fascinating, because the number 393 can be constructed by a similar merging of 39 and 93. And the factors of 39 and 93 are connected to 133 and 331. This is a very, very tight design. It's pretty amazing. But we're going to show how this is also connected. Because not only did Albright die 3 years, 113 days after Papa Bush, but this also comes out to 39 months and 3 weeks. Albright died at the age of 30,993 days. And this was a number that was already coded into the Bushes a long time ago. When George Bush's wife, Barbara Bush, died, George was 93 years and 309 days old. And the name Barbara Bush equals 93 and 39. Once again, looking at that first Great American Eclipse, it was on the date 21/8, and both of the Bushes died in the year 2018. If we instead measure between the deaths of George Bush and his wife Barbara Bush, we get 227 days. The main character of Madam's secretary, Elizabeth Bess Adams McCord, sums to 227 in the alphabetic order. And this is because the name Albright has Latin gematria of 227. In ancient Hebrew, total eclipse equals 227, just like United States of America. And don't forget the number 227 also intricately linked to pi. 22 divided by 7 is the smallest equation that gives you the first 3 digits of pi, 3.14. And in the alphabetic order, 22 divided by 7, also 314. There's some more connections I wanted to share pertaining to the eclipse code before I end this video. The show Madam's Secretary first premiered on the 21st day of the month. And that stands out because Elizabeth was born on the 21st day of the month. And the first Great American Eclipse was on the 21st day of the month. This series debuted exactly 35 months before the eclipse, and when Madeleine Albright died, the Queen was 35,035 days old. And using various ciphers, 35 is the first number that has gematria of 1331, this ultimate eclipse number. Meanwhile, if we look at the Queen's age on the date of that eclipse, 33,360. Very similar to how many days after her birthday she was when Madeleine died. And in Gematria, 336 days sums to 133 and 331. I also wanted to mention how this was connected to Bill Clinton. We talked a lot about George Bush because of the New World Order, but it was actually Bill Clinton whom Madeleine Albright worked underneath. And notice how Bill Clinton equals 313 in Latin Gematria. Madeleine Albright died a span of 313 days after her birthday. And her birth name, Marie Jana Korbalova, it sums to 313. In reduction, her name sums to 74. And this is another significant eclipse number. Total solar eclipse is 74 and 704 in Latin. And if you measure from Bill Clinton's birthday to her death, you get 7 months and 4 days. Okay, and this one is going to really throw you guys for a loop. So if we go from the date that Madeleine Albright was born to the date that she was sworn in as the Secretary of State, look how old she was. 21,803 days old. Now, I don't usually like to do this, but for the sake of this one example, let's drop the 1, and we get 283. She died on the date that leaves 283 days on the calendar. And this is a very important number because the moon equals 283. And the biggest number of the moon is 666, which sums to 2,083. But again, she was 21,803 days old. And she died on the date March 23rd. So check this out. The next total solar eclipse that will occur on the date March 23rd is in the year 2183, the same 4 digits in her age when she became Secretary of State. Now, the last time there was a total eclipse on March 23rd, it was the year 1308, and this number connects to both the Queen, with her full birth name, and Madeleine Albright in Sumerian Gematria. So I actually had no idea how to organize this post, so I wanted to make sure I did a little, some slides on there. And I sort of skipped over the fact that 313, which we just pointed out, that's the 65th prime number, like Secretary of State, a number that also connects to the Queen in multiple ways. Another fun fact here, 82 synodic months, the amount of time between the two great American eclipses, also has Gematria of 130 and 310, which reflect that 1331 code. Remember, the number 82 on its own sums to 666. Of course, very significant for eclipses, given the Earth's tilt to the sun. But yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, there's links down below in the description if you want to see more. Feel free to check out the website, subscribe to the Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube, and of course, check alerts. Of course, no guarantees that they're going to work. I know a lot of people struggle with getting alerts, so I try to let everyone know on Discord when I'm going to go live, which is shown there on the screen as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.